In this tutorial, I will go over how to create a CSS styling for your Krunker mod, and we will end up with a mod using that styling. The first thing you need to understand about website layouts is that it exists out of cubes. All you do with CSS is select one of these cubes and then apply a specific style. So for instance, we can select this customize button, turn it pink, change the text inside of there, and then flip it upside down. Set up the file, we need to have your mod zip, then put main CSS into a CSS folder, and then drop that into mod.zip. So you have a mod, within that you have the CSS folder with the main.css. Keep in mind, however, that items in a zipped folder cannot be modified, so you might want to use 7-zip or WinRAR to make changes to your CSS file. Alright, so first you want to open up Inspect Elements, which is either F12 or Ctrl-Shift-I. So as you can see, in here you have a little view with arrows and stuff inside of each other. These things are the cubes. So if we go to the chat UI, you can see if you look down at the chat, as I hover over these, you can see it selects the box that the chat is in. And then the voice display one selects the box with the voice thing. And then if I go in here, you can see all of the smaller things that are inside of this box are displaying, and then I can go on, right? So these are the chat messages that are inside of the chat list, inside of the chat holder, inside of the chat UI. Rather than sitting here and opening up arrows and slowly finding what you need, you can also click on this icon here. This is essentially like a color picker, where you can click on a box and it will automatically find it for you. So as you can see on the right here, it automatically finds what I need. So for instance, if we want to find the chat box, we can just click on this, and then we found, well, in this case, the input, and then you can scroll up and then we find the chat box. Okay, so because we want to modify the Customize button here, we can click on this icon, click on the Customize button, and it will highlight the specific cube that is for the Customize button. And as you can see, we have an ID and a class, which we can later use to identify this button as its own. It's pretty important to understand the difference between ID and class. An ID means that you make a bit of styling once that is exclusive to this cube. So if I make the styling, only this cube will receive that styling. Classes, however, means that you make a bit of styling, and then every single cube that has that class will receive that styling. Let's further explain this by actually writing some code. So we're gonna quickly start up our main.css that we put in our mod folder. Alright, so this selection here is our Customize button, and it has an ID of Customize button. So let's put a hashtag, which hashtag means ID, and then we can put the name of the ID behind it. Now what we're essentially saying here is that for every cube in our website that has the ID of Customize button, apply the styling that follows. The thing is, there can only be one ID, one of an ID in a website, so it's unique. So basically only this button will receive this styling. And then you put your curly brackets behind it. Now if we want to do the same thing with a class, we need to put a dot, and then we can put button behind it, for instance, because that's one of the classes we use here. But what is important is that a class can be applied to multiple cubes. So for instance, we have the button here. I'm guessing if you want to modify every button on the website, you need to do this, right? So if you want all the buttons to be green on the website, you can do background color green, and then it's going to turn every single button green. Now, keywords like background color are things you sort of learn over time. You will have to Google them. You can just type in your search bar how to, I don't know, change the background color in CSS, for instance. Okay, so now that you understand CSS a little bit better, let's take it from the top. So we're going to first turn on spectate. This will prevent me from getting kicked from the game. And then we're going to open up the, with Ctrl-Shift-I or F12, the inspect elements. We're going to use this icon again to select our button, and we see that this button has an ID of Customize button, like we saw earlier. So we have an ID, so it's a hashtag, and then the name, and then open brackets. So now we can start customizing it. So I want the background color to be pink, and I want it to be rotated upside down. So we do this background color pink. Now you can also do very specific colors with RGB, so like this, or RGBA with transparency, or you can even have like hex codes if you're into that. But what we're going to do is we're just going to call it pink, because that's a preset color. And then we're going to just do a transform rotate 180 deg, and that's going to flip our thing upside down. So now that we have that, let's actually try it out. So we open our mods tab, go to load mod, and then drag our mod.zip in here. As you can see, it flips it upside down. However, it does not change the color to pink. That is because this button has a bit of styling that sets the priority color of this button to blue. We can override this priority by simply putting important before this. This will say that it's no matter what, it's going to turn this background pink. So now that we have done that, we're going to refresh Krunker. Okay, I have refreshed Krunker. We're going to the mods, load mods, and we're going to toss it in here. And now it should work. There we go. Hopefully this tutorial was useful to you. Its main focus is to teach how you select cubes and then modify its styling. And that's really all you need to know. From there you can grow on by Googling any question you have, any styling you want, you can Google it. And it's also a good idea to look through other people's styling and see how do they do things. One last thing, the cubes and boxes I have been referring to in this video are actually called elements. So when you are Googling things, make sure to use the word elements and not boxes/cubes.